Well, we want to welcome everybody here this afternoon to a very special East Meets West talk, Japan Cool, Animation and the Rise of J Culture. I know we have a lot of animation fans who are brand new to it. And so I think looking at this crowd and our crowd on Zoom, we have a lot of both. So we're so excited that Dr. Jayson Chun from UH West Oahu flew the whole way over to Maui to be with us today. Let's have a big round of applause for Jayson. I'm going to let our program co-chair, Mr. Scott Kikawa, introduce Jayson because they have been friends for a really, really long time. And if it weren't for Scott, we wouldn't be hearing from Jayson today. And for those of you who were here a few months ago, we heard from Scott's other friend, not to imply that he only has two friends, but who talked to us all about Enka and music from I think 1800s through 19 or 2000. So it was a great talk as well. Scott, for those of you who may not know, is the author of Kona Wind and Red Dirt. We have done 2 afternoons with the author, with him for both of his books. We are so happy that he is a friend of the center. We have a few of his books left. So if you're interested in purchasing them before you go, I'm sure you will be happy to find them. Although I feel like everybody here already has their copies. But without further ado, please help me welcome Scott Kikawa so he can introduce Dr. Jayson Chun. And we want to welcome everybody on Zoom and in person here today. Thank you for spending your Saturday afternoon with us. All right.
Thank you, Deidre. It's great to be back here at the Stanley Izumigawa Resource Center. It's probably my second home and probably my preferred home of the 2 homes I have. My first home is less comfortable than this. It's my daughter brought a cat home. So I feel like I'm a prisoner in my own house, locked myself in my bedroom, cat free. Here there are no cats roaming around in the resource center. I brought Jayson along with me today back in March when I had an event here for my second book, Red Dirt. I was talking to Deidre and Melanie after the event, and they asked if I knew of anybody that might be appropriate to come and speak here at the Resource Center in one of these programs. And we looked at some of the past speakers, and I said, well, I have 2 people that are perfect for this, I think. Some of you may have seen that first friend. And yes, it sounds like I have 2. Sometimes it feels to me like I only have 2 friends. And you may have seen the first of them, Dr. Pat Patterson, who was here in July. He is an expert on Japanese popular music, and he spoke about the origins of Japanese popular music going back to the 19th century. Today, we have the second, which is Dr. Jayson Chun of University of Hawaii. As good a historian as he is, I think he's an even better anthropologist. I think anthropology was his true calling. And he has an interest, or has always had an interest in Japanese and Asian popular culture. And this was a natural fit. In high school, we used to both draw cartoons of each other, usually fairly insulting cartoons. And we went on to our respective colleges to be the cartoonists at our respective college newspapers. I was a cartoonist at the NYU newspaper, and Jayson was a cartoonist at the Georgetown newspaper. 2 guys from Hawaii, all the way in the East Coast, and everybody had to sample our work for the better part of 2 years. Uh, this, of course, we of course had an underground interest in manga and anime and some of its formative stages. In the 1980s, it was not one of those things that was mainstream yet, and wouldn't be for another handful of years. I would say not until the 1990s did it become kind of a household item globally. Now, we had to do this kind of underground, Jayson bringing back magazines and video from Japan for us to kind of puzzle out. Back then, we were both lousy in Japanese. I think we both kind of got C minuses in our Japanese classes. As you can tell, of course, he's much better today. I'm probably much worse than I used to be. I write in the English language because it's the only one I know. But we had an interest in this, and Jayson had developed himself into an expert. And I'll give you a brief professional introduction. He's an associate professor of history. Pardon? Oh, okay. My information is incorrect. You should update your bio. He's now full professor of history at the University of Hawaii, West Oahu. And his research interests include modern Japanese history, media culture, and the use of Japanese popular media culture, such as anime, in the classroom. He's also written about media reaction to the Japanese royal wedding of 1959, in A New Kind of Royalty, Japanese Imperial Family and Media in Post-War Japan, in the 2000 compilation, Japan Pop. He is the author of A Nation of 100 Million Idiots, A Social History of Japanese Television, 1953 to 1973. Jayson has also been instrumental in my own work. He, on a drunken dare, he challenged me to write a book set in Hawaii, and 2 novels later, a third one on the way, a Cades Award, and a mention from Honolulu Magazine making their essential list. This was all not possible without Jayson giving me that initial push. He's been my conscience in terms of the characters I create, making sure that they are accurate. Retreat. Jayson is considered to be not just a national expert on this topic, but a global expert. The Korean media has referred to Jayson as an international expert in K-pop. And K-pop's another one of his passions. Perhaps one day he will talk about that. And last night, Jayson, Deidre, and I were talking about the possibility of coming back and me moderating, or I should say refereeing, a panel with both him and Dr. Patterson on the topic of city pop. Jayson feeling probably that it's a boon for global entertainment in general, and Pat having a much more a much darker take on city pop, a genre that he does not like very well. So if you're around next year, I think that will be a lot of fun. It gives me an excuse to come back here. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you my friend of 4 decades, Dr. Jayson Chun.
Thank you, Scott, for that really wonderful introduction. Let me just time myself here. I'll make this a 30-minute presentation with a 15-minute Q&A session. Hello, audience. Hi, everyone. How y'all doing? Hello, Zoom audience. I cannot see you, but I will imagine that you are here right now. Please feel free, all of you Zoomers, to type comments in the comment section, and I will actually get to them. Okay, so let's start actually right now here with Japan Cool, animation of the rise of what we call J culture. Okay, so let's do the next slide, please. Okay, so I want to introduce to everyone to Japan Cool. This is something that has happened slowly, but over the past 30 years that you don't really realize something. If you are 30 and under, let's go next slide, please, right? Japan culture is part of your life. If you talk to people who are kids now in the 1990s, they're like now what, in the 30s, pushing 40s. They grew up with Japanese culture as a regular part of their life, not as some exotic culture. You see that? So we call this Japan cool, where kids grew up watching Japanese things as a normal part of your life. It's kind of like, I guess, the best way sushi, right? You go eat sushi, you don't realize, like back in the 70s, the sushi, Scott and I would talk that we eat in Hawaii is maki sushi, the nigiri sushi, the raw fish that we eat at Genki sushi. That really came in with 1980s, 1990s, right? But yet now it's so normal, you don't even think how new it was when it first came out in Hawaii. So next slide, please. So from the 1990s to today, the big change is Japan is a cultural export power. It exports culture. It's actually a much longer history, but for our purposes, we're just going to look at the 90s. Today's young adults had a Japanese childhood. Like everybody here, who's on your left? Yell it out or type it out. Who's on the left? This yellow creature. Yeah, how do y'all know that? Right? You know that. Pikachu, right? Who's on your right? I don't think maybe. Right? But everybody knows Pikachu. People grew up with Final Fantasy. Everyone knows Super Mario Brothers, right? You ever thought about it? Mario is what's a god? His name is not Japanese. Right? It's an Italian American in a Japanese game. You never thought something's odd about it, right? So you see what I'm saying? For today's young adults, people under 40, or maybe even older, Japan is a regular part of the life. So let this sink in. This is what we call Japan cool. Next slide, please. So what are the primary drivers of Japan cool? Let's first start out, everybody, with manga. How many of you recognize the manga on your left? Jujutsu Kaisen. All right, 1, 2. Look at that. We have hands raised up. How many of you recognize Demon Slayer on the right? Okay, everybody, the movie that was based on this in the year 2020 was the #1 selling movie in the world, WORLD. Now, of course, because of coronavirus, many Hollywood didn't make movies. This, everyone, was the top movie in the world. Worldwide, it was famous. So these two, this is, and for those of you who don't know, write down these titles, take notes, go home, or take pictures. It's better than notes. Take pictures. All of you who are home on Zoom, take a screenshot and just, look at this. Get this. Please, everybody, buy if you can, just because you're helping out the artists when you buy, or watch the anime on authorized sites like Netflix or Crunchyroll. That way, you don't support piracy. I always say that. Okay. Next slide, please. So the next part you want to think is anime. Okay, was based on manga. Okay, so let's go look at the two together. Manga, for example, if you notice on your left is American comics. American comics, because usually in the past, it was lucky to get only 25 to read it again and again and again. Japanese comics tend to be published faster, 25 pages a week. Therefore, they can be much more cinematic, using camera angles, visuals. It's a waste then of time to use color, because the average Japanese reads a comic page in 4 seconds. You see that you read it in 4 seconds. It's like reading an episode, then you recycle the book, or now it's online, and then you just get one next week. So do you see the difference, everyone? So Japanese manga then is very visual. Later on, anime, which is the animation, is going to be based on it. It's going to be very visual and cinematic in style as well. Can you all see that, everyone? What makes it different? Okay, next slide, please. I want to show you one thing about Japanese anime. This is from the book by Scott McCloud called Understanding Comics. Please get it. Really good book to analyze comics. And what the Japanese do in their frames is make what's called aspect to aspect. Imagine time freezes, and then the camera pans around. You see that? Okay, that's what it does. Like, look at the top. You see, it's like the same second, but it's just different aspects. It's like, the Matrix, when Neo bends over and stops, camera freezes, and the camera spins around, right? What this does, it makes a move. Japanese manga then is good at making moves. Therefore, when this is made into animation, it's really good at evoking moves. Y'all see what I'm saying? And what makes it different actually from the typical Disney release is the creation of moves. Okay, and so it's a lot more sophisticated. Okay, so it's camera angles, moods. It's made by very cinematic look. Okay, so that's just the characteristic. So by working on move, it doesn't necessarily do fluid animation. It doesn't necessarily do something very like stunning, although some drawings are really stunning. Rather, it focuses on telling a story and telling moves. Next slide, please. For example, look on your left. Who's that, everyone? Yeah, right? Y'all, how do you know all this? I'm just curious, how did you know all this? Well, how do you know? Yeah, seriously, how did you know it? Yeah, Pokemon. You grew up with this, right? Then you all know. By the way, the main character's name is, the young boy, Ash Ketchum. But you all don't know his Japanese name, right? Satoru. What happens is these names are changed, right? They're changed for America. And people, what is this? Yeah, he actually has a Japanese name, right? You see that, like Team Rocket, right? I think, right? Called Rocket Team. Right? They have different names, but the same thing. All you have to do is change the names, and you can understand it. Why? Look at Meow. Meow is sweating. Why? Is he hot? Okay, those of you who don't follow anime, you may have a hard time. Why is he sweating? He's nervous. So what happens is Japanese manga and anime, they use symbols as shorthand. He doesn't have to say, I'm nervous. He just has to say, show sweat going down. Or if you see a cross on someone's head, it doesn't mean they become religious. It means they're angry. That's a throbbing ring. You see that? So this is amazing. An international audience knows how to read these symbols. It used to be only Japanese could understand. Hey, look at this. Who's that on your right, everyone? Piccolo. See, you all know this name. Everybody, isn't this proof enough, right, onliners, that this is you are the anime generation? Right? Piccolo. Is it raining in Piccolo? No. What does it mean? Goku is dead. Victory, right? Strength, right? If you follow manga, you know what this means. And what they did was Japanese manga, and later on, like, extension, anime. Okay, so manga is the comics, anime is animation, and it's based on the manga. They focus on character development. And what's interesting is Piccolo is a villain, but becomes a good guy. In Japanese stories, bad people can become good. Good can become bad. Sometimes the villains actually are great. They have a reason why they're villains. See that sometimes the good people are great. They actually have a darker side to them, which they must overcome. So do you see how much more complex this is? So the main idea is Japanese, the kids are stupid. They don't treat the kids as stupid. They add in the sophistication. So that's why adults can enjoy watching this. Okay, so next slide. So the term anime that we use in Japan, it refers to all animation. Like, for example, believe it or not, one of the top selling movies in Japan of all time is Frozen. See that? It's translated in Japanese as Anna and Snow Queen. See that? This is actually one of the top, in Japan of all time. The Japanese love Disney. But what's interesting is people here love Japanese style animation. And so in the US, it refers to what we call Japanese style. And this is, for example, the anime adaptation of the Avengers. Can you see that, right? So do you see what I'm saying? When you say anime in Japan, people just think you mean all animation. But outside of Japan, it means specifically a Japanese style. Okay, so let's move on. So next scene, please. So the way that relationship is that manga, popular manga, are turned into anime. Manga is extremely mainstream. It's like we're thinking about 1 in every 4 books written in Japan is a manga. So I guess electronically now it's the same. See that? And publishing revenue, 25% or so of all revenue publishing comes from comics. That's how mainstream it is. Therefore, if a manga becomes popular, we now know the audience will read it. And so many times it is turned into anime. So this, everyone, is called the Food Wars in English. Food Wars. Go watch it. It is kind of PG, so it's not, the kids might not understand some of the stuff that's coming on, so it's good, but it's pretty good. It's about someone who wants to be the world's greatest chef. You see that? But it's a little bit of some stuff with double meanings. I'm just going to avoid, okay? But so y'all got any questions from online? Anybody type anything so far? Okay, not yet. Okay. So what does this tell you about Japan? Next slide, please. This is something a lot of people, even Japanese, don't realize. I have to explain it to them. Why is anime and manga popular worldwide? And one reason is, believe it or not, Japanese culture is multicultural. In Japan, well, Japanese don't know. If you go, to Japan culture, almost everything the Japanese did was adopted from outside Japan, like kanji. Right? Kanji was with origami, like folding paper. See that? Clothing. And later on, when the Japanese modernized, they searched the world for best examples. So, for example, the Japanese school uniform. It was built on in Prussia, Germany, military cadets uniform. See that? And I think the sailor uniform, was adopted from the US. Ramen, which we consider really, Japanese food, it's from originally from China. But what the Japanese do is they take it and adopt it and make it Japanese. And they change it so it becomes something different. You see what I'm saying, everyone? That's what Japanese culture is. So Japanese culture then is so multicultural, people outside of Japan can easily identify it, can relate to it, and yet it's different enough that it's something unique. Next slide, please. For example, take a look. This is a term I've invented called J culture, not Japanese culture. It's J culture. For example, Pikachu is J culture. You see that? I mean, a lightning shooting creature, is that inherently Japanese? All right. But the word Pika means sparkle. You see that? This is because Gothic Lolita fashion. You see that woman in black? That's Victorian fashion. What the Japanese did was made it black. Or Rococo, that's good fashion. And it's so unique to Japanese, it's identified with J fashion. On your right, Japanese pancakes. Believe it or not, the Japanese learned about pancakes. Guess where you learned it from, everyone? Well, how good pancakes can be. Guess what? You'd be shocked. Anyone want to take a guess? I'll give you it's from the US. Guess which part of America? Hawaii. If you go, I think when Japanese tourists used to come, when they came to Waikiki, they would eat eggs and things. And then they would eat pancakes, and they would see these massive pancakes. So, wow, this is neat. So what happened? It became, when you went to Hawaii, you had to eat pancakes. Huge things. And then eggs and things was franchised to Japan, where there are now more eggs and things in Japan than there are in Hawaii. And then the Japanese took the pancakes and improved on it. And they made the fluffiest pancakes. They're super fluffy. So we now call them Japanese pancakes, which they learned from Hawaii. Do you see what I'm saying, everyone, what J culture is? So it's something anyone can understand. Your Final Fantasy games, there's Mario. Again, now you're thinking, that's right, this guy's Italian. Right? Why do we call him Japanese? But he is. See that? And of course, on your left, everyone is Japanese curry rice. Where's curry from? India. But the British introduced it, then the Japanese changed it, and now they're selling Japanese curry rice in India. That's it. Everybody understand this key concept of J culture? Okay, so let's move on. So again, just so you understand, J culture is what you want to realize there are two trains of thought. One school of thought is Japanese manga and anime has its roots from the past. And so, for example, one scholars believe in this say, like this is a Buddhist scroll. I guess in the 12th or 13th century, they're called the Chojugiga, the animal scrolls. There was a bored monk, and he drew scrolls. See that? So the Buddha is a frog, can you see it, right? The princess is a fox. And these are scrolls that you read for unrolling. So you have these. So some scholars point to this as the origin. Next slide, please. However, other scholars have difference. In the 1600s, the Tokugawa dynasty came to power, and Japan was at peace for nearly 3 centuries. So that means that Japan became a big, huge cities were formed. Like Edo was the largest city in the world at this time, close to 1 million people, later on Tokyo. And what happens? When you're in a city, you're bored. You want entertainment, right? Next slide, please. There's no wars going on. So next slide, you have here, woodblock prints come up. This is called ukiyo-e. These illustrations, the floating world, believe it or not, the women on your left, they were the pinup girls at the times, or today Instagram models, influencers. You see that? I mean, there's the three beauties, and on your right, they'll show the courtesan attendants. So you could consider them to be Insta stars, I mean, influencers, like who go on, I guess like Jake Paul, like this, right? Or whoever. They're the pretty people who you wanted to be like. Pictures, these are mass-produced copies. They're just sold as cheap, decorations. Next slide is the first time we see the word manga. And manga really means like kind of damaged pictures or so. And basically, it was just random drawings. This is called Hokusai manga in 1816. It's just people drawing, like doing regular things, like swimming or bathing. Okay, y'all got it? Next slide, please. Okay, now the Westerners came in around 1853, and after that, Japan in the Meiji era overthrew, the shogun and started adopting Western influences. Take a look on your left. That's Japan Punch. You see that? That's a Western political magazine. Quickly, in just 15 years, the Japanese make the old version. Can you see how they're taking in Western ideas and modifying it to Japan? Like this is called the Maru Maru Chinbun, with tons of Japanese jokes that most of you probably won't get, right? Unless you know Japanese. You see everybody, a horse and deer, right? Why do you put horse and deer? Because the Japanese pronunciation of Chinese pronunciation of horse is ba, and the deer is ka, which means idiot. You see that? It's from a Chinese proverb. The man who sees a horse thinks it's a deer. You see that? Oh no, or other way around. You see, it's like so many small Japanese thin jokes are there. So next slide, please. So about the 1920s, we forget it. We keep thinking Japan's traditional. By the 1920s, it was a nation that had industrialized rapidly. See that? Rapidly industrialized. And this is a good picture. You see the different houses, right? Okay. If you watch Demon Slayer, this is the social setting of its time. See that? We're old and new are coexisting. So please look at the next slide. Okay. So during this time, American style cartoons start coming in. You see that? Like Blondie, right? And Father Knows Best. They're translated, and guess what? By 1924, the Japanese make their own. You see that? John Koma, the 4-panel comics, which are still popular today. You see that? So can you see everybody? When you say Japanese manga, anime, can you see the roots coming in? Okay, so let's move on. Next. I want to show you. So everybody goes, anime eyes, anime eyes. Guess where they come from, everyone? America. Okay. This is Betty Boop. This was the style of manga eyes, comic eyes that were popular back in the 20s and 30s. Therefore, Japanese copied the style. What's so ironic? It died out in America. It survives in Japan, where we call it Japanese manga eyes or anime eyes. You see that? So, there's so much history in this. Okay. Abnora Kuro, by the way, is a Japanese comic about a black stray dog. You see that? Who joins the Japanese military. You see? Okay, next slide, please. Okay. So, this here, everybody, is Tezuka Osamu, and we call him the godfather of manga. And he's going to take the cinematic style of manga and popularize it. He actually invents it. Also, however, so we call him the godfather of manga, but he also made Japan's first anime. See that? So let's take a look what he does. What he did was he was commissioned to make like a whole series of anime. And he, has to make one anime, a 25-minute episode every week. That's the possible schedule. So what he does is he took his comic, next slide, please. Okay. Yeah, he takes a comic called Tetsuan Atomo, and what he does is because remember it's cinematic, right? It's the stories are made. Even if the animation is of poor quality, it's easy to translate into anime. So he does that. You see that? And later on, all you have to do is remove the Japanese names, put in English names, and dub it. Of Japanese anime come in. It wasn't known as Japanese. These were all dubbed and names were changed so that you didn't know they were Japanese. I didn't put it in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer every Christmas. Did you all watch that? Guess where it came from? Guess where that was made? I want to ruin your childhood. It was made in Japan. It's Japanese. Little drummer boy, Santa Claus is coming to town. It was cheaper to make it in Japan and then send it to America. So all of you had a Japanese childhood without knowing that. You see that? So these were then, again, the famous ones that were shown all over America. Now, next. This is one of the key Japanese animes. It's called Space Battleship Yamato. Anybody remember this? Okay, one, okay, watch. How many of you know Star Blazers? You never saw it? Kind of, okay. Star Blazers is amazing. It was syndicated. And what they did was, it was the first really story anime. It wasn't like Mickey Mouse where one episode and, nothing happens. It's a story about people on a quest to go save Earth. It was incredibly violent for its time. If you grew up watching Scooby-Doo, this is like violence, young violence, right? A lot of it is unpolitically correct. Today you can't show it, you have to edit it. Okay. What happened was, it's interesting. The spaceship, the battleship Yamato is resurrected. It's like the symbol of Japanese nationalism. So we just changed it to these ship called Argo, and then they're off to save planet Earth. This then started in 1979. People knew something was different. It was very story-oriented. It was very gray, everything I told you. So please look this up. Find it online. There are episodes online. Find the Japanese. It's actually a lot more in-depth. American ones, they cut out a lot of killing. So the Japanese believe, death is part of life. You're not going to, if you glorify war without showing death, then people will want it. You have to show that it's painful. You see that? And so many regular good guy characters die, actually. So that's why it's very famous. Okay, so next one. Raise your hand if you know this. Online and self-raise it, okay? Okay, here it is. This is it, everyone. Go get it. It's online. It's on Amazon. You can go buy it. Buy the DVD. Buy remastered. This Akira is a watershed anime. I wish I could show you a scene, but I didn't have time to download it. It is so well made. It is amazing. This was shown. It was very expensive to make. It's about bikers in a dystopian future of Tokyo. It gathered a lot of critical acclaim. It's very well done. And all of a sudden, instead of being kids' entertainment, American movie critics were looking at anime as thinking adult entertainment. When I say adult, I don't mean pornographic. I mean adult as in mature themes. It's very gray, life and death. Okay, you see that? It's for thinkers. Okay. Next one, again, I couldn't get a clip, so please take a picture of it. This everyone is so influential. It's called Ghost in the Shell. Okay. This is basically set in the future. And it was built, it was originally like some kind of science fiction anime, but it was built as a thinking person's anime. It's very cerebral. People actually think a lot. It's about the main character is a cyborg, and the only thing left of her is her brain and a little bit of spinal stem. And she goes, what part of me is me? Like if every part of my body is machine now. What am I? When do I have the Matrix? The Wachowski brothers said, want to make a movie that reflects the style. So the style of the Matrix reflects Ghost in the Shell. So the Matrix then later on went to influence so much Hollywood. So in other words, Japanese anime influenced Hollywood. You see, everybody, what I'm saying, how your childhood, for those of you who are under 40, right, is, or even now older, your childhood is Japanese. Okay, so you can see that. This actually is Ghost in the Shell, and that on the left is Matrix. You see that? You see the similarities? Okay, so next one, please. Okay, I'm doing this because I realize a lot of you don't know much about anime. So take pictures. If you want something family friendly, do anything by Studio Ghibli, especially Miyazaki Hayao. My Neighbor Totoro. You see that? It's amazing. Watch it. It's so peaceful and nice. But you can watch it. There's actually some darker undertones as you watch. Okay, and Spirited Away. I won't give away the plot. I just want you to enjoy. Okay, I do want to, however, give a word of caution. Miyazaki Hayao, he believed kids were not idiots. He believed that kids could think, that kids knew that the world was bad. And many times, in the ending of this movie, good does not win 100%. Sometimes it's just a face-off. Because he said the battle still continues. So therefore, those of you who watch, you want entertainment where in the end, everything's all solved, you can't watch this movie. You see that? Okay. It's because he believed that life is like that. Well, watch it. These are all of his movies are amazing for kids. Okay. Studio Ghibli, it wasn't Miyazaki, it was someone else. Grave of the Fireflies is the most anti-war movie you'll ever see. Get your tissue out. You're going to be sobbing. You'll actually be really depressed. So after you watch, I don't have a picture, Grave of the Fireflies. Go watch My Neighbor Totoro. You see that? They actually wore a double feature just so that you would feel good and not feel so bad. Okay. Any questions so far online or in person before I move on? Just to anime itself. Okay. If not, then it's interesting. It was absolutely designed for women in their late teens, early 20s. So there were some themes that were not appropriate for kids. But then when they showed it in America, they realized kids watched it. So they changed many scenes. They changed a lot of dubbing just to make it kid-friendly. So if you want a kid-friendly version, go watch the English stuff. You see that? Okay. And then, if you want to know what originally was supposed to be, go watch the Japanese. Okay. But you can see, this is on your right, what we call shoujo. Shoujo anime. Anime aimed for women. Just think about it. We have this image of Japan being really bad towards women, and there are many issues that women still have to face and fight, like discrimination in the workplace. But you ever thought about it? How much of our entertainment only recently has been male-centric? There's been no comics for women aimed at women with women's concerns. See that? Japanese anime, however, has had this tradition of anime and manga aimed at women, since 1960s or 50s. So therefore, there's many things, if you have young daughters, that you want them to watch this. It's very empowering messages, actually. Well, women are the main heroes. See that? Strong women. Okay. So next, okay, I want to go through now some of the more popular anime recently, and you can decide whether to watch it or not. This, everyone, Attack on Titan. Anyone knows this? Well, we got some. We got some. It is one of the most violent anime I've ever seen, where humanity is under attack by human-eating creatures called titans, and they don't die quickly. They die painful deaths. They're screaming, "I don't want to die," and they die slowly. Right? So I'm going, why do kids watch this? You see that? It's so popular worldwide. Okay, throughout. Okay, but why? Okay, so we start thinking perhaps anime can give you a peek into what young Japanese are thinking. Perhaps they think life is a big competition. You see that? Let's take a next slide. This might help you understand like Attack on Titan. Japan is what's called a gakureki shakai, or an education background society. You go to a good university, it will lead to a good company. So your life is set at age 18 to get into the good university. Once you get to university, believe it or not, don't stay. Just party for 4 years, then you become a company slave. So for Japanese, life, young people, is test after test, pressure after pressure, competition against each other. All of a sudden, the idea of being eaten alive if you don't defend yourself makes sense. You all see what I'm saying, everyone? Right? So let's take a look at the problems anime face. For example, this is high school on the next slide. It's from your line and April. Okay. And the idea is high school life's both good and bad. Those of us who are older, we look back at high school with fond memories. How fun it is. Yet those people who are 20 years old, I don't ever want to go back to high school. Right? The pain is too fresh. For young people, high school is a place where you make friends, but your friends are your comrades and your rivals. This is something I see in America these days also, where you don't have friends, you don't have enemies, you have frenemies. I just noticed that. People insult each other. You're frenemies. Oh, sorry, we did cartoons insult, right? Young people love insulting each other. So why? There's this competition. So especially today, it's a sudden factor. And what university you went to, and you're comparing with other people what you get accepted to, right? So anime picks up on this. So on the top, it's about this gifted pianist. Therefore, she actually beats him, and he doesn't want to play. But then she keeps making him do it until he's a very mechanical but gifted player. But one day he plays and he breaks. You see that? He can't do anymore. You can see what I'm saying, everyone? And then he can't hear music. So he meets a young woman in college who's a free-spirited woman who teaches him to play music just for the sake of playing music. Okay. Next one here is no scenes from this, but highly recommend. We have IQ fans, right? You like IQ? Okay, don't tell me the ending. I don't know the ending final match. But any IQ fans? No? You haven't seen this. This is something online people say to watch. IQ. Online is, and my students told me to watch it. I watched it. I liked it so much it became part of my assignments. Is we actually watched it in class. It's about a volleyball team. See on the left is a the flying. Yeah. Actually, that's you. He's short, but he wants to be a volleyball player, right? But he's short. So he just practices to be the best player, even though he's very short. See that? Yeah. Yes. Tsukiyama, right? No, Kageyama, that's it. Kageyama. Is his rival who used to be a top middle school player, elementary school player, but she's too bossy, so nobody wants to play with her. You see that? So the idea is, how can you be rivals and friends? It helps young people navigate this. How can you be friends with people who are your rivals? And later on, they play other schools. You see that? And again, this is Tsujima, like the top players in the country. And I like this image. He's pushing them down. See that? So you can really see how young people love this. And yet, he's not evil. He's just your rival. He's a little bit arrogant. And so they actually meet and become friends with people from other schools. But those of us who play sports understand that odd feeling, right? You want to beat the person, but after the game, you see each other and you understand each other because you both train so hard. Hey, how you doing? You talk. I'll beat you next time, right? That's what they're trying to tell young people. How to be a rival or a friend or just a friendly rival. And that's a scene of all the different high schools eating with each other. You see that? They're just eating. They're having dinner. And because they're all volleyball players, even though they're rivals, they can still be friends. Can you see how affirmative, how positive this message is, everyone? So please watch Haikyuu. It's on Netflix. I think you'll really like this. It's really good. Last one. We have one or two more, then we'll kind of stop. We're almost there. This, everyone, is anime. Now end like for 5 minutes for working women. This, everyone, is flexible. Again, these are women's issues. It's on Netflix, both of them. Watch them both. A grateful young office worker who gets bullied a lot at work. And so she takes out her anger by singing karaoke. Okay. But it shows the issues that unmarried working women face in Japan, like pressure to get married, pressure to marry as an escape. On your right, this is Kaoru, Vidakuma Kaoru. Vidakuma is a cute stuffed bear, right? And she actually suffers from depression. They actually mentioned that I have depression in here. So she has mental health issues, but these bears teach her how to enjoy life. So it's a really almost 10 minutes. It's 10-minute episodes. It's beautifully made. It's like stop action. Go watch it. The kids will love it. But if you're an adult, you will see the darker themes so you can actually understand it more. But the kids won't notice. They're too young. Watch this one. Take a picture with silent voice. Yeah, you did. You're crying actually by watching it. It's so. Yeah, that's right. It's painful to watch at first. It is. But you see what I'm saying? Everybody, anime, it's like a K-drama, just hits you in the heart hard, right? And you have a good cry afterwards, but it makes you think about life also. But this is about a young girl who goes to a school and she's deaf. And so, she's taught the sign language, can barely understand a lip reading. And what happens? The students decide, because she doesn't fit in, to start bullying her. And they go into detail how they bully her to the point where she actually breaks down and has to leave school. And what happens, however, once she get your tissue ready. But you're taking pictures, everyone? Okay. If you don't want to cry that much, next slide, please. Get this one. It's called My Hero Academia. This is so popular. Okay. It's about a high school for superheroes. Right? It's about high school superheroes. In other words, you don't become strong by just being granted powers like Spider-Man, right? Or being born with the powers. You must learn how to use them responsibly in the school setting. That's what's so funny. And again, it's full of high school drama, like Baku Noda Kunai and blonde and green hair. They're extreme friends. They grew up in childhood like each other, and yet they're such rivals that they want to destroy each other. But it's wow, not Baku. See that? Midoriya. That's his name, Midoriya. So this is the concept that they're really high school kids still trying to learn how to do social relations. That's what anime is really good at, social relationships. Next slide, please, is one that you can take a picture of real life. It's on Crunchyroll. Please get Crunchyroll. Isekai means outside world. What if all of us were older? We could take a pill and our bodies become immune again. And then we're sent to high school for 1 year to work. How would you do? How would you do it differently with the knowledge you know now? You see that? What would you tell your classmates so that they lead good lives? Right? Isn't that an interesting start? What would you do to do that? And so, young adults, especially in the 20s or even older people, can watch this and relate. Oh yeah, I remember how awkward high school was. You see that? But actually, in the story, the man who gets set back actually learns from young kids how to have energy in life, how to have joy in life. You see that? I'm letting you know why I put this on. My students who watched it, for some reason, again, it's not necessarily tearjerker, but they were so moved. Several students just like all they could talk about it. Some actually broke down, saying, "I realized I'm like, I've been reading it without passion." See that? This is a good one, and you'll like that. Okay, next, please. Okay. So two more, and then we'll end soon. This is another theme is called kizuna, or basically ties. How do you have ties with someone who's not your relative? Japan is undergoing population crisis, not enough young people. So you have many people older now who don't have ties with family anymore. What do you do then? So therefore, on your left is young woman along the way who's a telepath. She can read minds. And then how does a fake family become a real family? You see that? And on your right, Your Name, just go watch that movie. It's about basically two strangers who meet each other, they switch bodies, and they start really understanding each other. That's it. And I'll just skip the next two. I'll just end here just for time, just people to ask questions for 10 minutes. Okay, so I guess last slide, the final slide. Okay. The one thing that you should watch on is China. Okay, if you're from Hawaii, this was a show that was popular in 1970. 1970s show. You can find it on DVDs, kind of go watch that. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. And thank you online also. Right. But, right. 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 Yeah. Right. 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 Well, the first thing that's set in a kind of like pseudo Europe, like the East Europe, Western Europe, 1950s, early 60s style. So the dress is like that style. Believe it or not, it's something good, which is the manga artist, I forgot his name, doesn't like this manga, to be honest, because he was told by his editor to draw it in a different style. So you actually touch on something, which is this is the idea of people who are all totally different. Like the middle character of Anya is one of the most popular characters now, I think now, in Japan. And the idea is three different people from very different styles, and yet they become a family. So again, how do you be a family with someone you're not dating? You see, this is what the Japanese are grappling with. For this man and woman from one, she's from the country, Your Name, who's from a city. They never met each other, and yet they feel a bond. See that? So that is actually what Japanese, but many Japanese don't have friends. This is hard to believe. In a group society, many Japanese are lonely. To be surrounded by people, to be told to be part of the group, and yet to maybe have one friend or zero friends. So that's why Japanese anime is about that. How to make friends, how to break out of this loneliness. And I'm seeing this actually with my experience a lot more, especially after COVID. People don't have friends, they only have online friends. And as you know, online friends can quickly. Right? That's a good question. Just one or two here, and then we'll go on. Right. Kind of? Yeah, go for it. Okay. Kamen Rider V3 was quite popular after that. And then you had some, but then the boom died out. And actually, I wrote about this in my book. It was just popular because in 1974, when it came in Hawaii, it was incredibly violent. Compared to Scooby-Doo, this is like exploding monsters, martial arts. And so at the playground, kids were told not to play kikaida. They could not go play because they were double chops, they were whacking. It was very violent. But kids liked it. And it's actually quite great in the story because he's a robot, but because he has a conscience circuit, right? He doesn't want to kill wantonly, right? But all the other robots do. See that? But because he's still incomplete, when the main bad guy, Professor Gill, plays the flute, he starts to go crazy. There's like temptation, and and he wants to attack people. You should go find it online. I think you'll love this. You'll love it. Oh, then you can talk with kind of people. Hey, remember Kikaida? I remember that. We talked about that. Is there anything actually going on in the room? Any questions about anime? Feel free, get a chance now. Talk to the academic set or semi-academic set. Anything about anime? Any online? Right. 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 Yeah. Right. 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 Yeah. Well, Japanese anime, like all anime products, has a lesson for the generations. Um, in the 60s, it was like Kitaira in the 70s. It's basically how it's always a single hero fighting a big evil organization. But now you're seeing the big message is, I think, this ideas of how do you um, how do you survive the stress of competition? You're seeing that. Could you actually go down one slide since you bring it up? This everyone you should watch this. This is called Demon Slayer. Okay, it's basically about young kids being sent off to fight demons. If they die along the way, and they must get stronger. And here's the thing: in Japan, once you get out of college or high school, so much responsibility is put on you. You know, your childhood's gone. You just have to work, and you got to work hard. You see that? So for many young kids, they know that. And so these stories about kids being sent out to fight, you know, the older people have job security, younger people don't. So they're the ones who have to fight each other. They have to get better in order to move up. So when you watch this, it's very violent, and yet kids can instinctively understand it. See that? So every generation has a different story, different morals. So the morals here is, how do you get ahead while still retaining your humanity? And the demons, you're going to find out, are actually people who took shortcuts to get ahead. You see that? And therefore they became demons. But they were humans just. See that? And it's very humanistic, actually. It's highly, highly recommended. It's on Netflix. Go watch this, take pictures, and you have now reading a list of anime to watch when you get home. You see that? Okay. Right, 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 right. Yeah, right. We're going to actually go to that. Everybody, it's not on here. It's called Grave of the Fireflies. Next time I get to I'll add some. It's, yeah, it's an anti-war anime. It's about a brother and sister trying to survive life in Poland. And it's semi-autobiographical, a wartime Poland. They get firebombed and, they lose the parents and they have to survive alone. And it's just a very realistic. Well, why does it feel more real anime than a real life movie? When you watch a live movie, you're thinking about special effects, right? Oh, this looks real. It feels like acting. But when you watch anime, this is what Scott McCloud said in his theory of manga. When the face looks abstract, you can put your face in it easily. If it's live action, it's hard to put your face in it. Or if the face is too realistic. So when you look at anime, you'll notice the bodies look realistic, but the face looks like cartoons. Why? So you can now be in it. So when you watch Brave Fireflies, these are your kids starving to death slowly. You see that? Trying to survive, doing whatever it takes to survive. And so it's a really powerful message, an anti-war message. Another one, I guess, if that's too hard, it's called Barefoot Gen. Right, go watch that. It's actually online YouTube. It's called Barefoot Gen. It's about atomic bombing of Hiroshima. It's from a child's perspective. And on Netflix, I think it's called From This Corner of the World. Okay, that's a good one. It's about a young girl, a young bride in Japan, and slowly the war comes to them from this corner of the world. And just watch it. The Japanese make good anti-war anime. It's very powerful, very good question. My view academia, the kids learn from adults. You notice they're there and they're mentors. And sometimes they may not have the best judgment, but the idea is you must trust your mentors. You cannot, like too many American shows, they make fun of elder people, right? When in fact, the Japanese shows, the elder people are a source of wisdom. And that, they may not always have it, but young people would be best advised to listen to what you say. Right? Some of the manga and anime actually are so cerebral. Unless you have life experience, you don't really understand it. I would recommend Sing Yesterday for Me. Right? It's on Crunchyroll. Sing Yesterday for Me. It's about, it's basically after college, a person graduates and he doesn't know what to do with his life. It didn't turn out the way he wanted to. And there are many small details, like the way the bodies move or the way they don't say stuff, that only if you have life experience, you can really understand what they're trying to say. It'll go over the head of a lot of people, but I love that. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, let's have a big round of applause for Jayson, our soccer son. This is so engaging. I think we all learn so much, whether we are new to anime or obviously have a lot of anime experience. But thank you. We hope you can come back and you can stay around for a little while if you want to take some questions. But we're going to close out the Zoom. So to our Zoom audience, thank you so much. Have a great afternoon, and we hope to see you at the next event. All right, aloha. Thank you so much. That was fantastic.